All right. So, part two, the extended version of ICE should not have killed that man. Let's break all this down a little bit. So, I have watched the videos, three different angles of the videos over and over and over again, rewinding to certain spots, looking for specific details on each one. There might be more videos now, there might be more information than what I saw originally. But I want to start by talking about some of the lies and some of the irrelevant details, right? So the Republicans are doing their best to paint this man as a domestic terrorist. As far as I can tell, there is no history of domestic terrorism whatsoever in regards to him. He appears to be a perfectly normal, law abiding citizen that was killed in the streets unjustly. Now, the Democrats are harping, oh, he was a ICU nurse. Good for him, but that's kind of irrelevant. It's entirely irrelevant unless he was deployed with ICE as a nurse to provide medical support, which I am 99% certain that's not why he was there. That would be the only reason it would be relevant at all. It doesn't matter whether the guy was an ICU nurse or a homeless crack addict. There is absolutely no reason he should have been killed like that. So, trying to harp on the fact that he's an ICU nurse only shows that they're really just trying to emotionally manipulate you and ignoring the actual facts of what went down for the purpose of emotional manipulation. Both sides are just trying to emotionally manipulate you into hating the other side. What should really be a wake-up call for the people of the United States is being used to force both sides deeper into delusion, and that makes me both scared and sad. So, let's break it down moment by moment what really happened. As far as I can tell from the videos, the man was filming the whole thing, and at some point, there is an individual with a backpack on that draws aggro for interfering with ICE. After that point, uh, Mr. Pretty, I don't remember his first name at the moment, he interferes with ICE himself to defend that person from the inevitable results of their actions. And he specifically begins to fight with the ICE officers, pushing them off this person, standing between them. And at that point, they pretty clearly, even though I don't recall hearing them say it at some point, they intend to detain him and possibly arrest him later. If you're not familiar with US law, there is a difference between detention and arrest. Anytime law enforcement is conducting their duties, they can pretty much detain anyone as long as they have some kind of suspicion that that person may be a threat or may be interfering with their duties. And at that point, they can continue their investigation. And if they determine through their investigation that a crime was committed, then they can arrest you for that crime. Detention is not arrest, but it often leads to arrest. Based on what I saw in the video, the ICE officials had every right to both detain and arrest him. They had the right to detain him because he was interfering with them actively performing their duties, and interfering with them actively performing their duties is a crime that they can arrest you for. So let's get that out of the way. No, he is not a domestic terrorist by any information I've seen up to this point so far about him. But yes, he was committing a crime by interfering with the ICE officials conducting their duties. However, he absolutely 100% in no way, shape, or form deserved to be shot. Let's talk about the fact that he was carrying a firearm. I am one of the most pro Second Amendment people you will ever meet. And I have always been this way. I remember back post college, a lot of my liberal friends would be really upset. And I'm pretty sure that's why they stopped talking to me, because I've always been pro firearm. And when they were like, why do you need an AR-15? You don't need that for hunting. I'm like, it's not for hunting. It's to protect against tyranny. And they said, well, this is America. There'll never be any tyranny here. I wonder if they still feel that same way right now. Anyways, moving forward, I got a little bit off track there. It just frustrates me that I've literally been warning people about this bullshit for 10 to 20 years and nobody's listening. So, first of all, I am a Second Amendment absolutist. What does that mean? It means that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, means that the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. As far as I'm concerned, the Second Amendment is the only law you need to require to carry basically whatever weapon you want in whatever method. Now, that's known as constitutional carry, but many states have been trying to strip you of your right to carry for decades, if not a century, so that they can enforce tyranny. And the way they do this is by requiring permits for concealed carry or training or things like that. If the founding fathers had wanted those requirements in the right to bear arms, and it's a right, not a privilege, mind you, understand that the Bill of Rights is not a list of privileges that are granted to America's citizens, while some people would like to frame them that way because then it makes it easier to strip those rights away. They are what the founding fathers considered natural rights, rights that every human being has simply by being born a human being, regardless of citizenship or skin color or religion or anything like that, right? So the two most important ones being the right to free speech and religion and the press and to gather and petition the government, which are all listed in the First Amendment. And that's why it's the first one, because in some ways it's the most important. It's the right that they felt they were most specifically stripped of by the tyrannical British government. And the second part is the right to keep and bear arms. And they say specifically shall not be infringed, just to outline how important that is, because it is the right that ensures none of the other rights are taken away. So, first of all, just from a general philosophical standpoint, I believe he had the right to carry that firearm regardless. But on top of that, he went the extra level of getting his concealed carry permit, which um, I'm not sure about the state of Minnesota, but considering that it's a very heavily Democratic leaning state, they almost certainly require you to have it. Some states, I think like Arizona, don't require you to have the permit, but still offer it anyways, so that when you travel into more tyrannical states, you have at least the paperwork to say, hey, look, I'm good. It's kind of like a driver's license for your gun, but we don't want to go too deep into like the weird legal bullshit of all that. The important thing is, by every standard possible, that man absolutely 100% was carrying that firearm entirely legally. The second and supremely important thing in this situation is, at no point does it appear he ever tried to use it against the police officers. I have watched the video over and over and over from every angle I could find, 3 of them so far. I'm not sure if more have come out since last night. I watched them again this morning before I recorded this video, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything. I rewound to specific parts. I've watched it dozens of times at this point, probably, and or at least little snippets of it dozens of times. And as far as I can tell, we lose sight of his hands at the last 5 seconds or so, and a lot can happen in 5 seconds. I spent nearly 15 years as a first responder, so I can promise you things can go very, very bad in 5 seconds, especially when weapons of any kind are involved, let alone firearms. But everything I can see from all the different angles, both of his hands were on the ground, and he was resisting arrest by refusing to allow the officers to put his hands behind his back, and which ironically means that his hands were even farther from the pistol because he had it holstered in his back. And even up to the very last moments before the shots rang out, it seems pretty clear, even though we can't directly see his hands, that they were still on the ground, because the 4 men who were on top of him hadn't changed position at any point whatsoever, and they were pushing down on him. If he had lifted even one of his hands off the ground to go reach for that firearm, the positioning of all of those men would have shifted, as the weight on him would have caused them all to tumble to the ground slightly, even if they maintain their footing. Now, that ends up being entirely irrelevant in the grand scheme of things, though, because 2 of the angles show that one of the agents involved actually disarms the man and runs away with his pistol before the shots ring out, which is the most disgusting thing of all of it, right? The man is disarmed and then they kill him. In the absolute best possible scenario, according to my opinion, and I'm not a lawyer, but I did study constitutional law in college. I just didn't end up going to law school. So I'm not a layman either. But in my personal, private, non legal, non lawyerly opinion, this is absolutely manslaughter at best. It is just complete negligence that they disarmed him and then, out of sheer lack of communication, someone still decided to shoot him anyways, right? That is the best possible scenario. The worst possible scenario is that it was an intentional killing. And I have to say, I hate to say it, but I am leaning towards that direction. Why am I leaning towards that direction? Because if you watch the guy that disarmed him, we ran out of space on the phone again. What I was saying though, if you watch the guy that disarmed him, two things really stick out to me. The first is that he doesn't appear to inform the other agents that he managed to disarm the guy. He grabs the pistol and just starts running away with it. And in the most suspicious way possible. If you watch the whole video from one angle, you can see until he goes off frame, he is looking around at the crowd like he's doing something wrong and he knows it. And then he like actually crouches down and slinks off right before he goes out of frame. I've spent my entire life watching people, and I'm pretty good at reading body language. Everything I've seen in that video makes it look like it was an intentional killing to me. And I think there's two reasons for that. I think if you watch my other video, I'm talking about how they're intentionally doing everything they can to divide us and make us angry. I think part of it is to, one, teach the Democrats a lesson, right? They want to put the fear into people and stop them from showing up to protest. I think the other aspect, though, is they know that it's only going to make more people protest and make more people angrier and cause more people to show up and do this kind of negative bullshit. And that's going to give them an excuse to enforce martial law. I've heard potential talk about the National Guard being deployed, but I'm not sure about this. And I don't want to, I haven't seen any updates specifically about that. That's all hearsay. For me at this point, you can Google it and see if, don't Google it, use something other than Google, but you can do a web search and see if that has happened at this point. But the point is, this is really scary for me for two reasons. One is that they are using the fact that the man was armed as some kind of justification for this when he was completely legally armed. And at no point does it appear that he ever tried to use the weapon as a threat to the officers in any way. So that's just an outright lie, basically, trying to claim he's a domestic terrorist because he was just carrying a firearm, which is protected by the Constitution, and he had a permit for on top of that. So that's just scary. This is a threat to the Second Amendment of the Constitution. And if you don't see that, if you're like one of the fucking MAGA idiots supporting this, then you are an utter fool. The second thing is, it really just disturbs me how many lies and misrepresentations are being spoken by both sides. The left is trying to claim it was an execution when it clearly wasn't an execution, because the man was struggling and fighting officers. And if you ask me, he should have been pepper sprayed again and tased and handcuffed and put in a cruiser, but he absolutely should not have been killed. That is absolutely unacceptable. And I am so sick of both sides twisting everything that happens to the most extreme conclusion possible with a series of obvious lies. And I'm so sick at all of you for believing it. So I don't know how long we have left before this country truly collapses into an unrecognizable state, but we are getting closer to that every single day. So I'm going to say something I've been saying for years now. I'm going to say it again in response to this. Make sure that you have non-perishable food and stores of water, including a water filter. If the water gets shut off, you can use the water in your water heater to help sustain you, but you need to filter it first, because water heaters aren't designed to have drinkable water unless it's like at a restaurant or something like that. They often have special water heaters there. But the important thing is, make sure you have water, make sure you have food, and make sure you have firearms and ammunition to protect that water and food, because I'm not sure how long we are going to have stability in the United States. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see some kind of martial law even before that, that makes it difficult to go out and get food, get water, and especially difficult to get firearms and ammunition. So I've been saying this for a decade over that you should be armed and training. And for the past 5 years or so, I've been saying that you should stock up on food and water, because things are getting scary right now. And they only get scarier every single day. And on top of that, I just want to say Big Brother is always watching. So delete Windows, de-Google yourself. I love all of you, and God bless America. If you want to talk about any of this, I'm going to be live later after I dig my car out, do some grocery shopping, and do some work around the house on both Twitch and Kick. I love all of you.